In this box is a very exciting pair of football boots that are made in Japan, part of the innovation pack, and these are the Monarcida Neo 3s. Now, this is a pair of football boots that I have not had a chance to actually try on in its regular edition. I'll show you guys the size tag before we jump into the unboxing. Here we go. So the Monarcida Neo 3 Japan Limited. These are obviously a made in Japan product with the wagyu leather and such, which we'll get into in a minute. My usual 27 centimeters, which is a US 9, UK 8, and a Euro 42. And I'm very excited. This video is huge thanks to Tokyo Football, who sent these boots out to me. They are not sponsoring this video, but they did send these boots out for free. So I really appreciate that from Tokyo Football. And as of the filming of this video, at least on May 27th, you can still buy these on Tokyo Football with worldwide shipping, which is super cool. So that is something to look forward to. Here we go. Oh yes. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very nice. These are shockingly light for a quote-unquote takedown model, which is pretty wild. Very soft wagyu leather, super similar to the Morelia 2 in this same innovation pack, which also featured a wagyu leather upper. This one is just the forefoot, and then we have the synthetic leather here in the midfoot as well, which we'll get into. So get these other ones unboxed. There you go. Very nice looking football boot. This complements the other boots in the pack that I have already reviewed, such as the Proto and the, let's see, what else did we do? We did the Proto, we did the Alpha, and we did the Morelia Neo 4 Beta. So those are all three of the models. You have this one, which is a Japan exclusive, and then you obviously have the Morelia 2, which is the full wagyu leather upper version of the Morelia 2, also made in Japan. And I didn't get those ones because they're very, very similar to other Morelia 2s that I've already reviewed. Over the course of the history of this channel, I think I've done 3 or 4 different colorways now, and I'm sure more will come as the updates happen in the next couple weeks. And but yeah, these are very, very cool. So the Monarcida sits sort of in a middle section. In most markets, this is the takedown model, and it's usually a little bit wider. So you can actually get, excuse me, you can actually get 2E versions of this football boot. As far as the box goes, which I'll have to check, these are, it doesn't clarify, so I'm guessing these are the regular like D width, which is the normal stuff, and then you can get 2E as well, and that is great for wider foot shapes. The Monarcida tends to be a little bit wider than its made in Japan counterpart. Now, in terms of the competition of what this is sort of competing with at its price point, this is obviously the limited edition model, so it's got the wagyu leather, it only weighs about 200 grams, and it's got the suede heel liner. It's got everything that an elite model of the Mizuno line would have, but it's sort of elevated a little bit. These are the two boots that I brought off the boot wall that this boot competes with. So the DS Lite X Fly 5, almost an identical construction of K-leather in the forefoot, synthetic leather, yeah, anyway, you get what I'm saying. Synthetic leather in the midfoot, and then you also have, this is the made in Japan regular Morelia Neo 4, so the non-beta version with the standalone U-throat tongue. Basically the identical boot to this one, you just have more of a takedown model, and then this is the made in Japan version with the K-leather. So those are the two kind of main competitors to this. There are other boots on the market that do a similar job of stuff like this. These are really sort of the two main models, I would say, in this competition list because of how popular they are. But in terms of what we're here for today is really discovering, and this is the question that I have for myself, is the Monarcida plenty enough of a top-end football boot for most people, including myself? Because I think this is a boot that just has evaded my I guess, reviews for a pretty long time. So I'm hopeful that this doesn't totally the bed in terms of not being where I think it should be, but from what I hear, this is a great pair of football boots overall. I've heard a lot of good friends of mine say these are an absolute smash hit, despite their price point being a lot lower than the made in Japan models. So as a construction, these are the Monarcida Neo 3 made in Japan's. So they're made of wagyu leather in the forefoot. They've got the Mizuno synthetic leather in the midfoot, which feels incredibly similar to this one. It's a little bit of a different finish, and this one on the Monarcida feels a little bit stiffer, but I imagine that will break in just fine. Feels incredibly similar to the DS Lite X Fly 5 in blue that I have over there as well. These come in a size 9, roughly around 200 grams, which is incredibly lightweight for a leather football boot. That's on par with a lot of the other Mizuno leather speed boots as well, including the non-beta and the beta made in Japan models. And the Monarcida usually has a wider fit, which I mentioned before. That could be because of the general material and shape. It's built on the engineered fit last Neo, which is the same as the made in Japan model, as well as the Mizuno Alpha. So you're gonna get the same kind of shape and fit with these ones, the made in Japan model of the Morelia Neo and also the Mizuno Alpha. In fact, I have a pair of Mizuno Alphas underneath the desk here, and there you go. You can kind of see the similarities in shape and size. These are both in a 9 US, and it looks almost identical in terms of the general shape. The Mizuno sole plate, the Alpha sole plate, tends to be a little bit wider in my testing. That's particularly relevant to that innovation pack Morelia Neo 4 beta that had the Mizuno Alpha sole plate. It does fit a little bit wider than the standard beta edition, but this sole plate is absolutely excellent. It is one of my favorite on the market. It's super neutral in terms of on-ground feel. You get really great feeling on the lateral and medial sides with the 4 studs in the forefoot on lateral and medial side, and it's got a really decent amount of stiffness as well. So that's a sole plate that is pretty much faultless in my opinion. It works great on the made in Japan model. It's going to work great on the Monarcida as well. And the external heel counter is a nylon with TPU resin. So that's what that sole plate is made out of. And then you've got the suede heel liner as well, with a tongue that is a little bit more synthetic-y feeling. It's got a bit of padding here on the top end of it, and it is very much a different material than the rest of the boot. So it feels a lot cheaper, but it's this kind of matte black plasticky material that is super movable, or how would you say, malleable, I guess, but it doesn't have the same kind of softness and suede that the made in Japan has. This one's very, very thin, and it's made of the same synthetic leather that you have on the outside of the midfoot on the lateral and medial sides, whereas this one is a completely different material. The removable insole as well is a suede liner, so very, very similar to the heel area. Nice suede liner per most of the innovation pack models. That's what you get with pretty much every single one. So that's an overview of the Monarcida Neo 3 made in Japans. These are a boot that I'm very excited for, particularly because I was hoping they were going to make a non-beta version with the Alpha sole plate. That would have been really cool, but to do wagyu leather, which is super supple, very, very soft, I think this is going to be an excellent boot to take out on pitch. So without further ado, let's jump into it. All right, guys, welcome out to the pitch with the limited Monarcida. Now, this is a boot that I'm super excited for because I actually really, really love the non-beta version of the Morelia Neo 4, which of course is like the big brother to this one. So let's get these on feet. They look absolutely sensational. This is my normal 9 US, and there you go. There's the tongue. The tongue is a little bit different from the regular Morelia Neo 4 and Neo 4 Beta, obviously. So here we go. Ooh, yes. Oh, yes. Okay, so true to size, these seem to fit a little bit closer to like exactly a 9 US compared to the Alpha and the Morelia Neo, which seem to fit most people like an eighth of a size long. Like it's a little bit long for some people. These ones feel like they fit really well true to size. This fits much more like the DS Lite X Fly 5 in a half size down. This is like toe is right up against the end there, and these feel fantastic straight out of the box. That is awesome. I love they went with the suede heel liner, similar to the construction of the DNA. Those fit really, really nicely. Definitely a little bit tight on the toes, but that's to be expected from a leather forefoot model. And we'll get the right foot on as well. It is a little bit chillier, that's why I'm wearing the big jacket today, but I will take it off as soon as we start doing some more intense movements through the play test. We're gonna go through the ladder, we're gonna go through some footwork stuff, and then of course some dribbling and shooting as well as a crossbar challenge. So there we go. There is a runner's knot here, so in case I find that over time, get a little bit closer here, so there is that runner's knot. As I get a little bit more broken in this midfoot kind of molds to the shape of my foot, you're gonna find that I'll start using that runner's knot much more easily and also more often, just because that's kind of the way that I like to roll. I like to use just the normal lacing first, and then as it starts to break in, I'll use the that other lace loop, which is pretty cool. All right, here we go. Let's jump into, oh, they feel so good, man. This is a great model. All right, so this is gonna be very, very similar to the Morelia Neo 4 and Neo 4 Beta, because the sole plate is basically the same. This one does feel a little bit more fit to my foot, which is really nice. So we'll see how that plays out with touches on the ball and stuff. And I do think, at least straight away, they do feel like they fit a little bit more true to size compared to the Neo 4 and Neo 4 Beta, as well as in terms of the knit. I know they're based in the same last, but I think the material and just the general shape of the boot just feels a little, that much wider in the midfoot, particularly in that seam here, and then in this area where the synthetic running bird logo is. I do feel like I just have a little bit more kind of wiggle room as a wide-footed player straight out of the box. So for those of you who are looking for this style of boot, yeah, I know it's not, well, this one's made in Japan, but the normal Monarcida is like their elite tier model and then their pro tier model, but the elite tier model, excellent option for wider foot shapes, I think. And I expect touch on the ball to be very, very good considering how well these fit straight out of the box. Yeah. Wagyu leather, I would say, feels a little bit more, maybe, I don't want to say, it's not stiffer than K leather, but K leather definitely has a little bit more of that kind of plush softness to it. So when you're manipulating the ball, this one feels kind of like a well-treated calf skin, but because it's the Wagyu leather, it's got sort of it feels like it's got the durability of a cowhide, but like the softness, or like maybe 70 to 80% of the softness of a K leather, which is pretty sweet. And in terms of the material used for the midfoot, I think this is safe to say for like most synthetic leather midfoots, is you really have sort of this, as long as it's, I don't know, pseudo, ooh, yellow. As long as it's like pseudo soft, can break in, DS Lite X-Fly 5, X-Fly Pro 3, all of those materials are kind of the same, and this is no different. This is a material that's gonna, it feels leather-like, not as much stretch as leather, which is good. You get the midfoot lockdown, and then you're pretty much sorted. So as far as I can say right now, no complaints on either the Wagyu or the midfoot material. One thing that I love about this boot immediately is the heel area. Man, Mizuno absolutely crushed it with this heel. Similar, it's very similar, it feels, to the DNA. Also, by the way, this is just a warm-up for my adductors so I don't kill myself while I shoot. The DNA heel area, in my opinion, is probably one of the best on the market in terms of the way that it wraps your Achilles. It's very narrow, but it actually stretches and molds depending on kind of how, like, I don't know, like how wide your Achilles and your heel area are. These ones feel, this one feels almost identical to that DNA heel, which is a great thing. Right, a little bit of shooting action, getting into like a pass into the 9 after a little bit of dribbling. So just trying to one touch. Sometimes I come out of these gates and that pass back, well, if the pass makes it there in the first place, obviously that's a good starter. But in terms of this pass, sometimes on turf, when you pass it to the 9, and it just kind of pops back up a little bit. See, there's that little bit of bounce. All I'm trying to do is curl it into the far post. So in terms of these Monarcidas, this is the first time, as I said, that I'm actually trying Monarcidas out. Nice, that was a little bit more power than I had initially anticipated, but there we go. I am very impressed with these Monarcidas. These are definitely, for me, going into a category, oh, hello. Going into a category of boot that I'm gonna start recommending to people who are on the market for something that's not, you know, $300 US or, you know, 500 made in Japan model stuff. Because, there we go. Because I think this is one of those boots that suits pretty much everyone's needs. It's lightweight, it's super comfortable, you get that leather touch. And in terms of durability, like, cowhide leather is freaking awesome. A little bit of different dribbling pattern here, which will be good. Just through the gates. And we'll try to get this third ball going. Really trying to rip it into the far post, which will be good. I am incredibly, incredibly impressed with how these Monarcidas are performing. I think, right down the pipe, I think that from a fit and general shape perspective, these are gonna basically fit most people. I know some people, I can't remember which video it was, but a lot of people were talking about how for wider foot shapes, when your feet spill over the side of a sole plate, that you get really annoyed by that. For me, that's something that happens with pretty much every boot, just because of the style of like foot that I have, style of foot, the style of boot that I like to wear, and just how wide my midfoot is, kind of in the middle of the boot. So I don't find it as much of an issue, but I know for some people, in terms of like, hey, I want something that feels more stable underfoot, this may not be the right move, just because the midfoot of these ones isn't like the widest you can possibly buy. I'd say actually the alpha midfoot is a little bit wider than this, even though this upper is gonna stretch a lot more. So it's kind of a, do you want an upper that's actually gonna fit you, or do you want a sole plate that's like the most grounded feeling, even if the upper's not actually fitting you all that well? Right, some free kicks. The touch on these is really good. I do imagine that I'm gonna start using the runner's knot pretty quickly though, just because I think Mizuno does a great job of putting their top lace hole in a really advantageous area, but I often find that there's still, if you can see from this bottom angle, there's still quite a bit of tongue real estate where I can kind of go higher with the laces to push my ankle back into the back of the boot. So that's something that the runner's knot will really, really help with. So try to get a little bit more focus on. Oof. Got to get it up and down, hey. Nice and easy. I love the ping that this wagyu leather has. It's got this really nice kind of like snap to it. Ooh, not getting up and around, hey. That's all right, let's jump into the crossbar challenge. All right, as is tradition, one left foot, one right foot. Let's get these in frame. It's starting to rain a little bit, so we'll wrap things up and that'll be good to go. Here we go, nice and easy. Bang, ooh, bummer, so close. All right. Get this next one in. Come on, get down. Ah, that's all good. All right, let's wrap up in final thoughts. All right, guys, that is going to wrap up the review and play test of the Monarcida made in Japan. Now, the Monarcida comes in a couple different variations. The Elite model is like the most famous one probably, just because that's like the best. A lot of people will say like, oh, that's the best for price point and takedown and takedown model quality, as well as for wider foot shapes who like this sort of leather forefoot and synthetic midfoot kind of vibe, which I think is an absolutely brilliant style of football boot. It's why I love the DS Lite X-Fly 5, X-Fly Pro 3 so much, although I know that one's synthetic. But this is a fabulous pair of football boots. I've really enjoyed training in them today, and it's a pair that has softened up so much. And I think that whether you're on the market for this exact one that, again, Tokyo Football was kind enough to send to me, they still have stock of these on their website. They ship internationally. So this is more of a personal note. They're not paying me to say this, but go get a pair. They're really good, and they're less expensive than the made in Japan stuff. And this quality leather is the best you're gonna find without paying made in Japan prices. So huge fan of these. The heel area is a rock star. Better than the Neo 4 Beta in my opinion, and better than the Neo 4, the regular one as well, in my opinion. This is like, they finally did basically as close to the DNA heel as possible. Very, very snug, nice suede material. It's got really everything, this boot, and it comes in at a actually reasonable price point, which is awesome. I still consider this to be, I know a lot of you might in the comments be saying like, yeah, but you never do takedown models. Respectfully, made in Japan elite models, and this is part of that, you know, this is obviously made in Japan, but the elite models from Mizuno are as good as all the top end models from every other brand. You got to understand that. The made in Japan are just in a total tier in their own, like they're their own tier. It's not even worth comparing. And so if and when I get around to doing all the other elite models, like I did the Alpha 1 Elite, and I might do the some of the other Neo 4 Beta Elites, those, you have to consider those a top-end model, and that's the same with these. They feel like a top-end boot. This would compete with everything else on the market, and this is like, you know, this is Mizuno's Tiempo basically, and this is so much better than the Tiempo in my opinion. But this is an awesome pair of football boots. I've really enjoyed playing in them. I will probably have another review of the non-beta made in Japan models to sort of compare with these as well, and we'll go from there. So would highly recommend picking them up. Thank you again to Tokyo Football for sending these over to me. And yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed that video of the Monarcida birds ahoy. Hello. Goodness, they all were like, subscribe, 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 you know? So that's gonna be it for the review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. As always, be awesome, take care. See y'all in the next video.